Please raise your hands if you have questions for Coach. Jeff Magliochetti.
Hey, Coach, thank you for joining us. What do you tell your team after a game like that where it was, not the best effort, best full effort of the season, but also you're going into a stretch where you won't be playing for 8 consecutive days?
Hey, I didn't think necessarily effort.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean when you're saying best effort in terms of more generally, but I thought our action was good. I thought our execution at times was lacking. I thought Connecticut just did a really good job of playing their identity and getting the ball in the paint and executing when they got it down there. In terms of what we say to the team is we say it's a long season, and we're not at full strength yet.
Mm.
That's not taking anything away from what Connecticut just did, which was, really thoroughly execute what they wanted to do. Their defensive pressure really bothered us, but in terms of the learning moments, we're still a very young team. And, the players learning how to deal with pressure, it's something we talked about in the second half. Look, it's not a secret that, the book is to really jump our pick and rolls. And now those minutes become really valuable, those late game minutes, where it's like, oh, it's a blowout. There's nothing you can do. This is just garbage. No, we don't have practice guys. No one in the league has practice guys. So we can't simulate that kind of pressure in practice. We just can't. So for them to keep fighting and figure out ways to execute against that pressure, I thought it was really valuable time. And I thought that our team did their best to utilize it.
Apologies, I didn't mean anything,
No.
by that, but
I understand.
So I want to ask on that note, by the way, how pleased you with the sparks provided off the bench by both Rebecca Allen and Jasmine Jones tonight, and how can that become contagious toward the rest of the team?
Yeah, I really thought Beck is starting to find her comfort zone with us, finding the places where she can do the things that she's great at. We're learning how to get her more of those opportunities. I think the team is learning, where we can get her the ball. She was really good again on both ends. And Beck, the amount of deflections and, she actually outright got a couple of steals. In addition to what she's doing offensively, I think she's starting to find her way, and that's really exciting. As far as Jazz, boy, was she a spark. That was vintage Jazz Jones. That's what she's capable of doing. And I really thought she was a catalyst on both sides of the ball. I thought she came in, and when she got that first one to go, that little mid-range, that little pull-up, looked like she got a little confidence, shook it off. And I thought she contributed in a lot of ways. I mean, she's one of two players to get to the free throw line for us tonight. So, she did a great job being relentless attacking.
Last one for me. Compared to the bubble last year, this must seem like a long vacation for you with 8 days off until the next game. How can you best utilize these 8 days to come out firing against Phoenix on the 13th?
It's going to be a combination of rest and continuing to address the ways that teams are attacking us and rep our counter to the pressure. This stuff is good for us. It's good for us. And I know the losses are really frustrating. I think, you guys can see on the sideline, I'm not happy, but at the end of the day, this is what's necessary, for us to prepare to be the team that we want to be. So I think keeping that perspective and keeping everybody's heads high, and then just really getting to the nitty gritty this week of how we can counter the pressure and get them a little bit more comfortable with it to the best of our ability.
Appreciate your time and insight, Coach. Enjoy the week off.
Jackie Powell.
Hey, Coach. I wanted to ask a little bit about when Lainey has an off night, what do you think going forward the rest of the team has to do to sort of step up and make sure she's still comfortable? She was dealing with a ton of pressure there.
Yeah, I thought the last couple of games she actually got a lot of really good looks that, rattled out or didn't quite fall. She started off pretty hot tonight and then just had a little trouble. And I think the pressure, we didn't have a starter in double figures, and it was a really great defensive effort, I thought, from Connecticut. in terms of what we can do, Benijah found a way. I mean, she had 6 assists, Sav had 5. They're still finding ways to spray the ball around and find the open player. I think that the consistency with which they find the open player, though, without the ball getting deflected or a little faster earlier in the shot clock, we're just going to continue to have higher yield possessions as that happens. And I think as a team, we have to do a better job of capitalizing on teams wasting 2 players on one of ours. We just have to react to that, respond to that more quickly. We've been talking about it, but again, it's just really hard to simulate. And I personally cannot simulate a trap that Jonquel Jones does. As much as I would love to move like that, I can't. And I have about a 6'2" wingspan, so that does not simulate the length of or athleticism of Jonquel. So we're going to do what we can. And I can assure you this team is going to continue to fight. And that's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, and so you alluded to it before, the discrepancy in free throws again. How do you want your team to fix that moving forward? Were they not as aggressive driving through the lane tonight?
I have to go back and watch.
Hmm.
I did think we got into the paint quite a bit and took some bumps and took some shots on the elbows and wrists. And, the calls just haven't been going our way the last couple of nights in terms of us on the offensive end. I know defensively there's size discrepancy, and we have to be physical. And I think what's hard is when you see us working our butts off and being physical and bigs, falling on the ground and being rewarded for it. It's not to say it's flopping. It's just to say, like, that physicality when a big is posting up and nailing us and burying us underneath the rim, that's okay. But when we box them out, it's a foul. And so I think, I'm going to continue to try to communicate and find out what exactly we are allowed to do and not do. And this is not out of sarcasm. This isn't a veiled attack. I'm really trying to figure out what I'm missing in terms of what's allowed and what's not. And I'll continue to do the work necessary to try and educate the players so that we don't have this continuing discrepancy in free throws.
Right. And the last one for me. So it was clear that the team was able to start tonight. The game was very close in that first half. But why do you think that, you guys just couldn't finish this time? It was sort of like the reverse.
Yeah, it was. We talked about at halftime that we were having trouble finishing quarters. We were really good in the middle of quarters and we had a decent start. I thought offensively we were good. Defensively, we weren't great again. To start, it was 13-13. And I remember thinking, God, I don't think we've gotten a stop, but we've hit some shots. So it's kept us in it. It didn't feel great. This team really thrives when it's getting stops. And we have some adjustments to make in terms of coverages, doubles, things like that. Again, not every team is built this way. Not every team has a Jonquel Jones, but a lot of teams have some good bigs, and if we're not able to take advantage of the advantage that we have offensively, and they're taking advantage of the advantage they have on the other end, obviously the outcomes aren't going to be great. So, I think we've kind of gone up and down this year in terms of our ability to do that. But it's a learning curve. I mean, it's kind of how it goes. We had some good ones, we've had some bad ones, and everything in between. It's a young season.
Thanks so much, Coach. I appreciate it.
Doug Feinberg.
Hey, Coach. I have 2 questions. The first one, I apologize if you already answered this. I was in the other Zoom. You said before the game, tempo, I think, is important. Who establishes it? Was it one of those things where they got their tempo, got offensive rebounds, and that caused problems for you guys instead of being more up and down?
I thought they really controlled the game on both ends. They pressured us. They took us out of our, when the ball really gets going, and, we talk about it being like a pretty offense when we drive and kick and we draw help and we find the open player. And I thought their pressure really bothered us to an extent really that we haven't seen. They executed the pressure defense better, I think, than anyone has so far, as is evidenced by our 64 points, even though we still shot 41% from 3. That third quarter, we hit a little dry spell there, and that really hurt. That timing of the missed shots, because I did think we generated some good ones when we weren't turning it over and they didn't go in. And that's the roll of the dice. with the way that we're playing. And as we get more consistent and better at understanding how to deal with pressure, I think that what's going to happen is we will be better at getting into the lane, finding those opportunities to cut off the ball, finding the opportunities to attack and draw multiple defenders and kick. And I think we'll more often see the game that we want to see. But it's what I told you guys. I don't know, we were 4-1 or 5-1, and I said teams are going to counter, and we're going to have the next chess move, and that's where we're at now. We've got to have the next chess move, and so I think at the end of the day, it's going to be good for us.
My second question is more of a philosophical one. I'm not saying the officiating today was good or bad either way. I'm just curious. In college, it's very rare you see the same official 2 games in a row. Yet the WNBA, it seems to happen a fair amount lately. Might be good to have some variety, and maybe that's something that might be helpful, so you don't see the same people 2 days in a row, whether they're good or bad. Not saying that they were bad officials, but just having a different set of eyes on your team as opposed to the same person twice, the same people twice in a row.
That I think would be good for everybody, to make sure that we're mixing it up. I think we've had in 9 games, I think we've had the same official maybe 3 times. One of the officials I think we've had 3 times early on, and a lot of officials we haven't seen at all. They have a really hard job. The refs have a really hard job, and striking a balance for us, for myself as a young coach, of fighting for the team, making sure they know that I've got their back, while also, finding out what those lines are. Tonight, I was very surprised when I got my technical, because I didn't say anything, offensive. I was saying we haven't gotten one of those calls. So we haven't gotten one, and I got a technical for that. So I was told I was warned. I didn't hear it if I was warned, but the long and short of it, to your point, it's not a criticism of them. It's more to say I'm continuing to find that balance of what's allowed and what's not, and the effective ways to fight for the team in ways that I guess other coaches are better at than I am, because they seem to say a lot and do a lot. And I don't know that they've gotten 2 technicals in 2 games. I didn't get 1 technical in the entire bubble season. So something's going on. Not sure what it is. Maybe it's me.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate the answer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. Next up, we have Rebecca Allen. Please raise your hands if you have questions. We have 10 minutes with each player and coach, so I ask that you ask 1 question and a follow-up. Lauren Rosenberg.
Am I unmuted? Am I good?
We can hear you.
All right, bet. So, you've been actually playing quite well off the bench for these past few games for the Liberty, obviously the Liberty. So I was just kind of wondering, with that momentum off the bench, how do you think that's going to spark the offense for the next couple of games?
I mean, we're trying to make sure that we're always coming with a whole lot of energy. We say that as the bench coming to the game, we want to make sure there's no drop-offs from the starters. So if my job's to come in and bring energy, I'm going to try and do that in every way I can, defensively first and then offensively. And I know my teammates are doing the same.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jeff Magliochetti.
Beck, thank you for joining us. Since you didn't get to work with her last year in the bubble, what have been your impressions of working with Jasmine Jones, and how does it feel to come off the bench with her and provide just a spark as we saw tonight, particularly during the second quarter?
Yeah, I mean, you see her energy when she comes into the game. She gives a real lift to our group, but even just the way she attacks the rim, I think that she got into the paint, got to 2 feet really well today. And that's something that we really need as well. She draws a lot of defense, and then her ability to kick the ball out too. So yeah, she's really great to play with in the way that she sees the floor.
And one thing that's been noticeable over the past 2 games for you is not just the scoring, but the way you've been able to help the interior on threats like Cambage, on threats like Jones. You come in there, you swat the ball away, and you force a jump ball. So, what gives you the sense of fearlessness to work on the interior with players who are admittedly taller than you?
I mean, when they're taller than you, maybe a bit more physical. You've got to play with other of my abilities. I guess I'm long, I'm quicker, I can run around them a bit. So I'm just trying to use my advantages when I'm playing against the post players. So yeah, I know what my job is to come in and play defense first, and I'm just putting a lot of focus into that.
Appreciate your time and insight. Thank you.
Jackie Powell.
Hey, Beck. Thanks so much for joining us. So we talked a lot about how in the past couple of games you guys weren't able to start, but it seemed like the reverse happened tonight, where you were able to start, but then you had trouble finishing. What did you sort of see there, and why do you think that happened?
I felt like in the first half we were hitting some really tough shots. The ball was going in with some huge contested shots in moments. And I felt like in the second half, our shots weren't dropping, and that doesn't mean that we weren't taking good shots. It was just that the ball wasn't falling in for us today. In the next breath, just staying together and that connectedness needs to continue to be a focus for us offensively. But I feel like we're finding the right looks, and just sometimes, it's not your day when the ball goes in.
Right. And so we just spoke to Walt, and he talked about how opposing teams have sort of made a chess move on you guys. So in this next week, it's going to be about you guys making that move to counter it back. I'm curious as to, what sort of will motivate you in this next week so you can come back a week later and make that next punch.
Well, 100% the motivation is the feeling after this game. It's not a good feeling to lose like this at all. And we're better than what we showed today. That's the other part. I know that we're going to work really hard this week, especially because teams are being extra physical, and, the way that they're defending the on-ball is quite aggressive. So we're going to do a lot of work on that and just being able to find open people.
Thanks so much, Beck. I appreciate it.
Rafiq, listen. Rafiq Lewison.
Hey, Rebecca, sorry about the loss. With 8 days of rest, what are you guys looking to do to adjust on this losing streak?
I mean, this is a good time for us to really work on what we need to do for the next games. We've got a whole lot coming up on the West Coast, and it's going to be a good time for us to get back together, regroup, and work on some of the fundamentals of the way that we want to play the game, our offense, but our defense as well.
Thanks, Beck. Next up, we have Sammy Whitcomb. Please raise your hands if you have questions for Sammy. Jeff Magliochetti.
Sammy, thank you for joining us. So, what did you think of the way things started out tonight? You preached that starting off was, the way to go. It was this team's Achilles heel over the past few games. So, what did you think of the start tonight, particularly the opening few minutes?
I thought it was better. I thought we were more locked in, engaged in what we were trying to do. I thought the way we finished the quarter probably wasn't ideal, actually. We had them at around 18, 20 points. And, I think we had some fouls and let them kind of score a few easy buckets late that I think would have been momentum changers for them. But I was pleased, I guess, a little bit more in terms of how we started, for sure.
With 8 days of rest coming up right now, what do you guys hope to focus on most as you prepare for what's sure to be an arduous West Coast road trip?
I think there'll be lots of takeaways, particularly from these last few losses. Some of that will be, handling pressure a little bit more and not being sped up by teams. We'll continue to work on the things that are our strengths as well. But I think, there'll be things that we'll take away from this game. We'll have a look at and continue to build.
Appreciate your time and insight. Safe travels home.
Thank you.
Jackie Powell.
Hey, Sammy. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. So, what I want to know is what did the sun do that made it so difficult for you guys to move the ball, from the strong side to the weak side?
Um, Again, I don't always know if it's the other team as much as it's just something that we're not focused on enough. But I mean, credit to them. I thought did a really good job of pressuring us and pressuring the ball handlers. And obviously when we came off of on balls as well, they were playing aggressively there and making it tough, taking away some of that. But I don't think it's, when we wanted to move the ball, we did. It's just, we need to continue to make it a focus. We can't get lost on one side. We can't get so bogged down on wanting to play one side. So I think for us, it continues to just be something we have to continue to drill, continue to work at. So I think it was a bit of both really tonight.
Right. And, when Benija has an off night, when her shots are just not going in, what do you think the rest of the team needs to do to, step up and give her a bit of support, especially when she was fighting through all that pressure?
Well, I think tonight was the first game where she had an off, if you want to call it that, an off game in terms of scoring and shooting. So yeah, I mean, I think we'll look at the film and work through that. But for sure, I think it's got to be, she was doubled and triple teamed every time she got into the paint. They were collapsing on her. So we have to be in positions for her to that are open for passes. We have to cut for her. We have to get open. We have to move. And I think, again, we just have to be mindful about shifting the defense, moving it back side to side, loosening the defense up to then create those better looks for her, for everyone. But yeah, for sure, if it is an off night for her, everyone has to step up in terms of our aggression. We have to be more aggressive. We can't just put it on her.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Sammy. I appreciate it.
Karina Mustafa.
Hi, Sammy. Thank you for joining us. As one of the more experienced players on this team, what will you tell your teammates on how to deal with that pressure?
Well, I think it's something that we can, work on this week in practice. And I think it's just about slowing down. I think sometimes when you're pressured, obviously you speed up, you want to do something to get away from the pressure really quick. Whereas I think we just need to absorb it. We need to invite the pressure. If they want to pressure us, fine. We'll take the pressure. They'll put two people on us or whatever it is. We'll make the easy passes and pass out of it, and we'll drill that. And I think as well, if they're just pressuring the ball handlers one-on-one or the guards trying to get open, we'll backdoor, we'll do other things to kind of alleviate some of those things. I think we need to slow down a little bit in order to make those reads. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Thank you.
Rafiq Lewison. Rafiq Lewison.
Hey, what are you looking to do in order to prepare for the next game with this 8 days of rest?
I'm sure there'll be a number of things that we'll look to continue to work on. I'm sure takeaways from this game will probably be handling pressure, ways that we can get each other open out of that, ways we can use the pressure against teams as well, if that is going to be something that teams are going to do to us. We'll get back to just getting in the gym, getting shots up, working on our stuff again, working defensively, again, boxing out, rebounding, all those kind of things, and hopefully get some rest as well.
Thanks, Sammy. Next up, we have Michaela Onyenwere. Please raise your hands if you have questions. Jeff Magliochetti.
Michaela, thank you for joining us. This past two games have been a bit of a burden for you in the sense that you've had some elite interior competition to deal with. What have you learned about yourself as a basketball player over these last two games, over these tough two challenges, the first big ones in your professional career, it feels?
I think just recognizing my matchups, I'm always probably going to be on, like you said, a dominant post player. And so just continuing to learn how to execute on the defensive end. Obviously Jonquel Jones is a great offensive player. She did well tonight. And I truly didn't have an answer for her. And so just continue to grow from there and learning different coverages, how to disrupt and how to use my quickness to my advantage. Obviously there is a height advantage there. So there's other ways just to disrupt their offensive game. So that's something that'll come, that I'll continue to keep learning as the season goes on.
you're blessed with a strong support system in the sense you have these coaches, you have a veteran in Kia Stokes working with you, and unfortunately you haven't been able to play with her recently, but Natasha Howard has been on the bench. So how great has your support system been over these past few games in the interior, and what's the best piece of advice you've received over these past 2 nights?
Yeah, they've been really encouraging. Always in my ear, just about what to do, what coverage work better than others, how to use my quickness to my advantage and things like that. Kia and Natasha have been great, and even Kylie as well. Just in, like I said, encouraging me and being in my ear. And tonight, even Natasha was just giving me tips, just finding people early, even at half court, finding people early so that they don't have the advantage when they get down to the post. And so, yeah, it's been great having those people who have been in the league, have been able to defend these people before, and just hype me up in that sense.
Appreciate your time and insight. Safe travels home.
Jackie Powell.
Hey, Michaela, good to see you. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to say that I love your shirt and I really appreciate that, you guys are supporting the fight against gun violence. But anyway, so when you were on the bench tonight, what were you able to see about what the Sun were doing to you guys defensively?
I think defensively, they were just making us uncomfortable. Just they were trapping on our ball screens, being very aggressive on the ball pressure, and I think it kind of disrupted us a little bit. But once we were able to get out of that, get into the paint, we were able to get good looks. And I think Coach Wall said we had 20 assists on like our 24 field goal attempts, and so that just goes to show how efficient we were when we were able to get those offensive opportunities. But I think the pressure did kind of take us out of our rhythm.
For sure. And so Coach Walt actually spoke about how this loss, it's going to encourage you guys to make the next chess move as you have this next full week off because teams have adjusted to you all. So I'm curious as to how the week off, motivates you and the whole group to sort of punch out and, make that next chess move based on, how other teams have countered you guys.
I think having the bit of rest that we do have will be good for us, just to rest our bodies, rest our minds, but also just, give us some time to really look back at these last 3 games where we've kind of been punched first, and really see what we can change moving forward. We have a tough stretch going into the next week, going to the West Coast, so that'll definitely help us just kind of just regain kind of some sort of confidence in these next upcoming games.
Thanks so much, Michaela.
Thanks, Michaela, and thank you all for joining. We will send the recording and post-game notes shortly.